Democrats are outright stumping for socialism ahead of the midterms. The Save America Act gaining political steam, but will leader Thune acquiesce to the president and most of the country's voters, or remain defeatist about its prospects in the Senate? And the Supreme Court rules for immigration policy sanity, which of course means the American left hates it. It's Friday, June 26th, and this is news and commentary from America's Heartland. You're watching Heartlander News. Welcome into Heartlander News. Be sure to keep up to date every day, all the time, with all the latest news headlines written by common sense journalists right here in America's Heartland, heartlandernews.com. My name is Chris Stigall. Well, you might have heard that the Save America Act is now full throttle. The president has said he's not even going to sign this new housing bill that will be sent to him from Congress until the Save America Act passes. It's now become a point of contention between the Senate Majority Leader John Thune and several Republicans, including President Trump, and most voters, by the way, who say, pass this thing. Thune says, I don't have the votes. Newt Gingrich, one of the most masterful communicators out there, gives some counsel on what he thinks President Trump and Republicans ought to do to bring pressure to bear until it passes.
Works. My advice, as somebody who began working with Reagan in 1974 and who served 8 years with him when I was in Congress and he was president, my advice is to pick up a Reagan trip. And that is, this is a big issue. It's an issue where the country's about 5-1 in favor of the president. And what he ought to do is spend the next 3 months and go to 20 or 30 or 40 places, have huge rallies with a simple model. Only American citizens should vote. Now, that means the left wing of the Democratic Party will go crazy, as we saw in the primaries this week, where genuine radical socialists began beating to the traditional Democrats.
It's, of course, a brilliant strategy, and Newt is exactly right. Push the issue, make it a national issue. We already know it's an 80-20 issue, so push it and use it. If Majority Leader Thune is not going to go to work and put his nose to the grindstone to get this thing through the Senate however he must, at a bare minimum, the president and Republicans can crisscross the country hammering the idea that we support only legal citizens voting. It's a winning issue. Make the American left say otherwise. But to Majority Leader Thune, with respect, this I can't get the votes answer of yours is no longer an acceptable answer, in my opinion. We just saw the New York Democrats say the quiet part out loud. They reject Western values and the foundations of America's laws. They're opening borders and opening elections when they can. And the damage is already obvious. Democrats are not hiding it. They are telling us plainly. In New York, voters just elevated candidates tied to groups that call for the total eradication of Western civilization. The civilization that produced the Constitution, individual rights, and the rule of law. This is the same trajectory as Ilhan Omar, who's faced credible allegations of immigration fraud and ties to massive taxpayer fraud in Minnesota. Listen, when one side openly rejects the foundations of our system and works to weaken the rules that protect it, strong election integrity is no longer optional. It's essential for self-defense. And Scott Jennings, in clip number 53 here, Aaron, Scott Jennings says it well. The American people understand. If you talk to people across the country, this is very plain and easily understood by most Americans across the country. Election integrity is essential for our own self-defense.
I don't think this is just his instinct. I've been all over the country lately and talked to a lot of people out there. This Save America Act, it's not just him thinking about it. Millions of Republicans across the country are worried about it. They're asking about it. They're asking their members of Congress about it. You talk to a member of Congress, they'll tell you the number of calls they're getting on it. I'm sure he's hearing about it. So I think, I'll just play devil's advocate on the strategy piece. I'm not arguing the housing bill is bad. In fact, it might be good to campaign on. But you could see a world where if Republicans who love President Trump perceive that he was giving up on this thing that they actually really care about, that would be politically depressive to them heading into a midterm where, you know, off-year turnout is already an issue for Republicans.
Right. Strategic, again, just as Newt said. Look, leading Democrats are fighting against voter ID and against citizenship verification and against any safeguards that prioritize our security over access. They have made their intentions perfectly clear. They do not want the rules enforced. But Republicans do. Listen to Paulina Luna, the congressional representative from number 49 here, Aaron. Here she is saying the Senate needs to get straight with the Republican voters' priorities. Taking vacation now is not the time.
Own polling, this is overwhelmingly supported proof of citizenship plus voter ID by the American people, Black, white, Hispanic, Democrat, Republican, Independent, female, and male all support it. What I will tell you is President Trump is correct. And look, even if it's only 100 cases, it's still 100 cases too many. If you're talking about wanting people to fully engage and trust their election process and get rid of this whole idea and notion that people can't trust their vote, which I think is incredibly important to the American people, we have to get this done. What's even more crazy, though, Jake, is that we've passed this multiple times out of the House. The Senate says that they don't have time to debate one of the most popular issues in the country, and yet they've had time to go on, on vacation. They've had time to literally host dog shows, and they've had time to put into legislation that we've had to vote on in the House that would give them guaranteed wins for lawsuits. Not to mention they've been shilling for Monsanto. So no, I'm not inclined to be bullied by the Senate. But what I am inclined to do is stand up for residents in Pinellas County and other people across the country that wants to see this done. And so I actually last week just filed an amendment to support this by attaching it to the National Defense Authorization Act that is currently sitting in the Rules Committee.
She's right. Look, thanks to DOJ, we're already proving that verification works. We're now verifying eligibility and saving hundreds of billions of dollars in the process. And the same principle has to apply to voting. We lock our doors to prevent burglaries. We install smoke alarms before the fires. We verify eligibility before we distribute benefits. At least we're supposed to. We must verify citizenship before a vote is cast. If the Democrats don't respect the rule of law, then we'd better tighten every law we can while we can, because they are coming for them. And they've told us so. The Republican Party must stand clearly for the rule of law in a time of makers versus takers, or law abiders versus lawbreakers. It's Senator Thune's responsibility to help protect America's future. If citizenship matters, then verify it. If election integrity matters, Majority Leader Thune, protect it. Democrats do not respect you or the rule of law, sir. They feed on weakness. This is the 250th anniversary of our founding. Give America the birthday gift this country deserves. Bring the Save America Act to a vote, or at least fight like hell and show you're trying. Meanwhile, the Democrats, as I say, make no mistake. They tell us exactly who they are, and polls show it. Harry Enton, the vaudevillian over at CNN. Give me number 44, if you would, please, Aaron. Here's Harry Enton going over the numbers. Democrats are trending more and more and more toward the takers, not the makers.
Because what is true in New York City in a Democratic primary ain't necessarily true nationwide with the general electorate. I mean, just take a look here. Net favorable rating of Democrat Socialists. If you look at Democrats nationwide, look at this. Democrat Socialists are on the positive side of the ledger at plus 17 points. This includes Democratic leaning independents. But look at all voters. A completely different world. 27 points underwater Democratic Socialists of America are in the net favorable rating. So what are we talking about? A 44-point difference here in the wrong direction when we come to Democratic Socialists of America, jumping from being pretty popular among Democrats to being not popular at all among all voters.
What about just the word socialist or socialism? How's that doing?
Yeah, okay. So, one of the trends that we have seen is among Democrats, socialism has become more popular over the last decade and a half. But what about the rest of the electorate? And this, I think, gives the game away right here. Okay, positive view of socialism. Among Democrats, look at this. Up considerably from where we were in 2010, 50% to now 66% now. That's a jump of 16 points in a decade and a half. But look at all others. The number is the same. It was 29% back in 2010. It's 30% now. Socialism has become increasingly popular among Democrats, but it is a much tougher sell in the rest of the electorate. It's a much tougher sell among independents.
Of course it is. But the Democrats don't care. Those are the numbers. It's a much tougher sell, but the Democrats don't care. They're going that way anyway. So Ali Velshi welcomed one of these new socialist America-hating candidates on his show to question her about this very thing in clip 45. Are you, in fact, a communist? And how do you answer? In 2026, are you a communist on a cable news show? This is how she answered that.
And you're going to appear in all sorts of people's ads, all sorts of Republicans' ads to say, this is what you're going to get if you vote for the Democrats, a communist.
I think that framing is one that I've been very proud to be able to say I don't respond to, one in which I have been very intentional to say I won't be reactive. We are presenting a vision of what we're fighting for. And I think for far too long, we have had politics that is reactive to what Republicans are doing. What we need is Democrats who are actually going to present a positive vision, one that sets the tone for what we should be talking about, which is the issue of affordability, which is the issue of how our budgets are moral documents. If we say that we want to invest in working people in this country, then we need to do that, and our budgets need to reflect that. If we say that we value immigration and immigration justice, we need to make sure that that is also reflective in our policy. And so I'm very proud of a campaign that we built that centers those ideals, that centers those values and that vision for what we need as a community. And that's how I'll continue to move forward in Congress. And I think that for far too long, this reactive conversation of what we should be afraid of has prevented us from being able to have a politics of hope and a politics of life that Democrats can actually identify with. When the majority of the Democratic base has been seeking for the Democratic Party to act.
Yes. Are you a communist? To which she answers, I don't respond to that. I think we should stop instilling fear. So what she's saying is, don't fear communism. I'm not going to respond to that. I'm just going to tell you that basically, yes, I am, but I'm not going to deflect or argue the point. I'd rather you just embrace it. They're saying it. Despite the numbers you just heard from Harry Enton, they are telling you exactly what they believe. They make no apologies about it. And there are some that are sounding the alarm on it. Let's go to the human exoskeleton, number 57. I think he's Skeletor in this new He-Man film. He's James Carville, and he's been asked about Democrats and this trend to this hard left, socialist, communist, Marxist agenda they seem to be embracing. Here's what he says.
The New York Times reported, and I have the quote right here, I'll get to it. She is against fast off all their views. She has attacked interracial relationships in the American flag. Lady, I ain't in the same party as you. I'm sorry. I just not. And I actually do think it's time for Democrats to talk the S word, schism. I really do. Everybody's always said, no, we're coalition, we're big tent. And there's just some shit that I can't be in the same tent with. And we talk about what Madame was 3 for 3 last night in Manhattan. They call it the Commie Corridor. Fine. Jason Crow's service pack, vote vets, 10 for 11. You wouldn't know Jason Crow exists. Okay,
No, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know Abel Sandberg exists. You wouldn't know. I want to be very specific. I understand the free press for being here because if they nominated David Duke or something like that, we'd be the same way. understand all that. To the extent I understand the Times, because they are the New York Times, so they have to cover, they are the hometown newspaper. But the idea that we must neglect everything else that's going on, all of these other primaries, all the recruits Jason has, all huge, phenomenal successes we've had, and declare that the party is now under the control of the Democratic Socialists of New York City is insane. But and understand, these people do not like Democrats. Not only are they not Democrats, they wish Democrats poorly. So I just cannot. Maybe there's a way that you can say to, I guess Mandami is the leader of it, is, you insist that, try to insist that the people that run under your banner run as a Democratic Socialist and don't use the Democratic Party as your guideline, and let's negotiate the terms of a schism here. Maybe we can part under some kind of advantageous terms for both of us. But I'm done. I'm not in that fucking political party. I am totally comfortable in a political party that spends time questioning the policies of the government of Israel. In fact, I'm enthusiastic about that. I don't want to be in a political party that denies the right of the state of Israel to exist. That's just not. I just can't do that. I'm sorry. It's just not doable. They are a great gift to Donald Trump.
Yes, you heard him say it there at the end. They are a great gift to Donald Trump. James, I'm sorry, my friend, my brother. I know you don't want it. I don't want anything to do with that. I want out of here. Well, they're here, my friend. They've taken over your party. You're not going to throw them. You say it's time for a schism. You're the schism, man. You're on the outs. Your party's been swallowed whole by this lunatic stuff, and there are only a handful of you left that are willing to sound the alarm. I mean, I appreciate it, but it's a little too late, my friend. The horse is already out the barn door. You can't close it now. Little Josh Shapiro, the tiny governor of Pennsylvania, number 52 here, if you would, please. Little Josh is very concerned, as he's Jewish, we established that earlier in the week, and he wants to be president of the United States. He also tries to pass himself off as the great moderate Pennsylvania governor, who's Mr. Purple, barely blue, barely red. He's the Jewish Obama, basically, is the way he'd like to present himself. And he, too, is trying to entertain this without outright embracing it. Now, James said, I'm done. We need a schism. We need to set them over there and treat them as other. Little Josh thinks he's going to try to flirt with it. Maybe embrace it. Maybe this is good for us, actually, says Josh. Listen to this.
I think what our party has to go through that will be very healthy, and something we've not really done since the 1992 election cycle, is to have a battle over what we believe in, to have a battle over the ideas that we are going to hold on to and campaign on and then deliver on as a way to make people's lives better.
Yeah, it's just a healthy debate. Communism, the outright seizure of all makers, just seize everything everyone makes, and you take it all and you dole it out. We should have a discussion about that, says Josh. That's a healthy debate in our party. James doesn't think so. Neither does Melissa DeRosa, who's a Democrat strategist. Give me number 58 here, finally. I'll move off of this after, but I'm enjoying it thoroughly, ladies and gentlemen. I must say, the Democrats are in a free fall here. They don't know what to do. Their party is being swallowed up by socialists. The old guard knows it. Guys like Carville and that old guy with the headset you saw earlier, they're lamenting the fact that Trump and Republicans are going to use this Democrat socialist sweep to great effect by the fall. And guys like Shapiro, Carville, so does this DeRosa woman, they know it. They're terribly worried for the rest of the country because, remember, they want control of the House and the Senate. And this socialist sweep is a deep concern to some of them who are still somewhat sane.
I mean, listen, Harris, it is time to sound the alarm for the middle. Moderates need to be speaking up loud and clear right now, because this is an attempt by the socialists to do a full-on takeover of the party. And the way that this is going to work, that I fear you're going to see trickle across the country, is that Democrats see what happened in New York last night, or 2 nights ago, excuse me, and then they fear that if they don't themselves move further to the left, they're going to incur similar primary situations. And so you're going to see establishment Democrats move further and further to the left in an attempt to stave off primary battles in their own districts. And again, this isn't just New York. This is New York. This is DC. This is LA. This is Boston. This is Chicago. And so you are seeing this spread across the country. And if we don't do something collectively to stop it now, they are going to take over the party. I mean, listen, Harris, it is
Well, there you go. James Carville and Ms. DeRosa there, deeply concerned. They want a schism. They're going to take over the party. They're going to cost us losses. Little Josh trying desperately to court them because he knows he needs them in order to win the Democrat nomination. Says, well, this is a healthy discussion. It's a healthy debate. This is delicious. Of course, it's frustrating that the Republicans at this same hour are having trouble passing something as basic and common sense as the Save America Act. So they're not off the hook, but it's remarkable. Despite the Republicans in the Senate and their ineffectiveness and their inability to do something most of the country wants, maybe the Democrats to the rescue with the unbelievable, insane embrace of full tilt communism. One more from Axios here. Moderate House Democrats warning they're prepared for war if incoming progressives and Democrat socialists try to hijack the House floor to secure ideological concessions. This strategy would mean even more work for House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries to tamp down divisions and keep his caucus unified. Despite being generally more closely aligned with Jeffries than the progressive wing, these centrists say they cannot allow their party to be dragged to the left without a fight. One centrist House Democrat, I don't know who these centrist House Democrats are, by the way, first I'm hearing of them, but Axios has found a couple, and they claim, quote, clearly there has to be organization. You can't just wring your hands on this stuff. There's going to be a war. Bomb throwers, not problem solvers. So supposedly Democrats have all these concerned centrist Democrats who want organization to deal with these new commies that are coming their way. Look, I'll believe it when I see it. Meanwhile, yesterday, huge victory from the Supreme Court. President Trump was just handed 2 big victories on immigration. It ought to have every American breathing a little easier. Democrats like Chris Coons over there in the Senate, if you please, Aaron, number 56 here. Chris Coons, the legal scholar that he is from Delaware, Mr. Centrist, Mr. Moderate, he's very upset about the ruling yesterday. Take a listen.
As though these cases are in the Venn diagram of your committee, because they deal with both the judiciary and they deal with our entanglements with foreign countries. Talk to me about the way that these rulings allow the president and Stephen Miller to reshape our national identity and this country.
Alicia, it is so hard to process what the Supreme Court has just done. Which is to strengthen the president's hand in making deportation decisions, in expelling from the United States people who came here under a long existing bipartisan program that says when certain countries are countries of violence and oppression, where they have natural disasters, we will welcome in folks from that country. In Delaware, we have a significant Haitian community that's been working in southern Delaware for years, that have put down roots, that have contributed to our community, but they're here because of this temporary protected status program. The president will now use this Supreme Court decision to expel them from the United States. This is going to upend communities and families all over our country, but it's just part of his broader, frankly, cruel program of attempting mass deportations across our country. And the Supreme Court just handed him another tool to accomplish that goal.
Right. So, in other words, the Supreme Court handed the president another tool to protect American citizens first and protect the sovereignty of the homeland first. As I say, every American should be breathing a little easier. The Supreme Court said that the Trump administration can go ahead and end what's called temporary protected status, TPS, for hundreds of thousands from Haiti and Syria. No more dragging it out forever in the courts. Second, and this one's huge, They ruled that people still sitting on the Mexican side of the border have not actually entered the United States. That means they're not entitled to jump right into the asylum process the second they show up at the line. So you put these two things together, and you may be seeing a trend here. You may be seeing the court finally drawing a line in the sand that citizenship is not the same as illegal presence. Hear me? Citizenship is not the same as being here present and illegally. Being here because you broke the law doesn't give you the same rights as somebody who was born here or came here legally. American citizenship means something. It comes with real privileges and real duties, and it shouldn't be handed out like parade candy just because you crossed a river or maybe you had a baby on our soil. For years, we watched Democrats throw the borders wide open, millions pouring in. Families getting crushed, fentanyl killing kids, gangs making themselves right at home. And every time the Trump administration pushed back, the left ran to friendly judges with lawsuit after lawsuit. They treated every illegal like they had a golden ticket, and the rest of us were just supposed to shut up and pay the freight. But this Supreme Court, thank heaven, hasn't gone along with the destruction. They've been slapping down those crazy nationwide injunctions where one judge in California could stop the whole country from enforcing the law. They've backed the president's power to set priorities, remove criminals, and say enough to programs that were never meant to be permanent. Here's Stephen Miller. Give me number 47 here, Aaron. Stephen Miller, one of the president's chief aide-de-camps. Stephen Miller on this temporary protected status ruling from the Supreme Court yesterday and what it means and how the administration will implement this going forward.
Anyone who loses TPS status as a result of this ruling.
Well, of course, if you no longer have status in this country, then you're supposed to be deported. And in particular, in the case of the Haitians, the Biden administration flew over vast numbers. It's hard to know the exact number, but probably more than 1 million illegal immigrants from Haiti. That's not counting the border crossings into the United States. So these are people who've only been here for a few months, who are receiving welfare, whose all their ties, all their social connections, all their family is back in their home country of Haiti. And of course, that's where they should go.
Does that mean more ICE employment?
Right. President's power to set priorities, remove criminals, and say enough. That's his prerogative. And the president and the court reminding everyone that just because you're physically here after breaking the rules, it doesn't mean you get the full set of rights that belong to American citizens. Stephen Miller continues in number 48 here, driving home the point.
When we consider Haiti a safe country?
For Haitians, absolutely.
For Haitians?
Yes.
Yes,
yes, Haitians live in Haiti. It's not our position that Haitians should leave Haiti. I mean, it'd be crazy for us to say that Haitians couldn't live in Haiti. It's their country. Of course, Haitians should live in Haiti. There's no viable asylum, or use a technical term here, CAT claim or withholding claim for any Haitian seeking relief from going back to Haiti, to their homeland. The fact that there might be pockets of Haiti where there's higher crime rates, guess what? There's pockets of Chicago with crime rates just as high, right? There's pockets of cities like St. Louis with crime just as high. Pockets of Los Angeles, crime just as high. It has never been the case that having communities that have high crime rates is a basis for asylum. Never has been, never will be. Thank you all. Have a great day.
And that brings us to the big one a lot of us have been talking about while we're at it, birthright citizenship. The 14th Amendment says you're a citizen if you're born here and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Back when they wrote that, of course, that phrase was supposed to keep out kids of diplomats and enemy invaders. It was never meant to reward people who snuck in and then demanded automatic citizenship for their children. That's been turned into an anchor baby magnet, and everybody knows it. And of course, we don't know exactly where the justices will land on birthright citizenship, but look at the pattern. By limiting those blanket court blocks, they've already made it tougher for activists to tie the president's hands. They're taking the Constitution and the original meaning seriously again, thankfully. Maybe they're just restoring order. Or maybe and I think this is possible, they're quietly getting the country ready for a correction on birthright citizenship as well. That would be huge. Either way, the direction is clear. We have a border. It is real. Legal entry into this country matters. There's an order to it. Citizenship is precious. It shouldn't be the prize for breaking our laws. What we're seeing now is not mean, it's not cruelty, as Senator Coons said. It's common sense. It's what any nation that wants to survive does. Look at Western Europe and what's happened to them. The Supreme Court seems to be waking up to this reality, and after years of open borders and judicial sabotage, that is a real breath of fresh air. The Wall Street Journal, though, it wouldn't come as a surprise to you probably, they're not very happy about it. Trump, refugees, and the Supreme Court. They point out that poverty and deprivation are no reflection on character. There's no justification for denigrating the character of Haitians who suffer from and bear no responsibility for their country's ills, they say. And they summarize this way: we oppose Mr. Trump's moves to remove immigrants who have put down roots and contribute to this country. What exactly does contribute to this country mean? That they're here? Liberals are wrong, says the Wall Street Journal, when they denounce the conservative justices for greenlighting Mr. Trump's mass deportation. Their target should be Mr. Trump. The job of justices is to interpret the law as written, not to impose their policy preferences. Why should Mr. Trump be targeted? Wall Street Journal. He's doing what the American public wants. People are sick. And by the way, you ask naturalized American citizens about this, and they're going to be far more passionate and patriotic than any of us who were born here in the United States. Every time it's true. I was just with some people last night. I was with a gentleman from South Korea last night who was mad as hell about this. People that have come here legally and the right way and done the work and paid the money, they are passionate about what it means, this country, and our anniversary of our founding. The SAVE Act, Senator Thune, I mean, it's just so hugely significant and important. The American public, the American people, this country, it deserves protecting. And President Trump is communicating that is his agenda. That's his ambition. That's his goal. Blue state leaders erupt after Supreme Court's decision ending TPS protections for Haitians and Syrians. This from Fox News. Governor Kathy Hochul said New York will continue fighting for immigrants. Just like Chris Coons said he's going to fight for immigrants. The Democrat Party wants to fight for people not from here. People who aren't here as residents, citizens, in many cases not here legally. The Democrats want to continue to fight for non-residents in the United States, not actual American citizens. It's really remarkable. In New York, Kathy Hochul announced the state would push back by designating sensitive locations to block ICE agents and ban masks for immigration enforcers. This is New York. We fight back. We defend our people, Hochul said. You defend your people? No, you're not. You're actually doing quite the opposite. You're not defending your people. You're defending other people's people. For those who think they can come here and just tell us that that's going to be the different way it is, you got to get to us first. Huh. Okay, so they're just going to outright ignore the rule of law? They're going to outright ignore the Supreme Court? Is that what Governor Hochul is suggesting here? See, this is what's so frustrating to a lot of us who are looking from the outside in and wondering, why are guys like Leader Thune content to simply say things like, well, we don't have the votes. We can't get it done. There's nothing we can do. Let's go on hiatus. We don't have the votes. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court rules, and as soon as they do, Democrat governors and Democrats across the country say, we will fight you in the streets if necessary. We're not going to adhere to what they say. Democrats have no power. They've never been less popular, and yet they're more willing to fight aggressively than they've ever been before. And all of us see it and wonder, where is the fight from the Republicans? It's pretty frustrating. New York City public advocate, whatever that is, delivered some of the harshest rhetoric, accusing the Trump administration of operating with a white supremacist lens. This is another day in Trump's America where we have someone in the White House who believes in fascist rules with a white supremacist lens. He's doing this because his policies are based on treating people like they're not human beings, particularly if they're black or brown. Well, look, it's a real issue. Citizenship or non-citizenship being exploited, it's a real thing in Nebraska. They're being sued right now over a state election law that allows individuals who have never resided in the state to vote in its elections. This is happening. The lawsuit challenges a 16-year-old state law in Nebraska that allows an individual to vote in the state if they are a U.S. citizen and have a parent registered to vote in Nebraska. In some cases, someone who has never resided in the United States nor registered to vote in the U.S. could vote in Nebraska, according to the lawsuit. Nebraska's constitution is clear. Voters must live in Nebraska, says the RNC chair. However, the Democrat Party chair in Nebraska said the lawsuit is against the children of military families and Americans working overseas who are, per our Constitution, Americans too. This lawsuit says those young people wouldn't be allowed to vote. A 2009 federal election law at the core of the litigation aimed to implement the requirements of the Federal Military and Overseas Voter Empowerment Act. It allows members of the armed forces, overseas citizens, and those residing outside the country to cast a ballot that streamlines and reorganizes the current provisions in law dealing with ballots for members, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, an illegal alien gets 8 years in prison for $89 million payroll scheme. This from Breitbart. An illegal alien has been sentenced to 8 years in prison for his involvement in an $89 million payroll scheme that saw illegal alien construction workers and their employers evade taxes. Assistant Attorney General Colin McDonald said today, we held an illegal from Honduras available for brazen scheme that stole more than $38 million from the American taxpayer. And that's one guy that we know about. And so the House of Representatives canceled their scheduled votes for today as some Republicans opposed any voting until the Save America Act passes. Good for these House Republicans. Republican of Florida, Anna Paulina Luna, as I just played for you a minute ago, and others vowed to oppose all floor action until the Senate passes the Save America Act. The chamber canceled rules votes scheduled for this week and can't proceed without those rules. Tom Emmer, House Majority Whip, said members are advised that votes are no longer expected on the House floor Friday. The last vote for this week is expected at approximately 1 p.m. this afternoon. That was as of yesterday. The House remained committed to voting on a suspension bill Thursday before leaving for the week. So there are some House Republicans that are willing to fight, and that's a very good thing. Senate Republicans, some of them, to be fair, you have guys like Mike Lee who are, if you don't follow him on social media, by the way, you should. Mike Lee is fighting and fighting hard. Meanwhile, Iran, that situation continues to be a little dicey here. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps attacked a Singapore-flagged cargo ship Thursday in the Strait of Hormuz. That's according to two senior officials. And it puts a big test on the deal signed last week by the United States. A one-way attack drone maneuvered to the west side of the ship before it struck the vessel. The attack damaged the ship's bridge but left no casualties. The incident took place near the coast of Oman hours after the Iranian Parliamentary Navy warned ships not to use routes through the waterway that the regime hadn't sanctioned. So that continues to be something to watch, and we will. The economy, good news on this front. The U.S. economy grew at 2.1% in the first quarter. This from Fox Business. The Bureau of Economic Analysis on Thursday released its final reading of first quarter GDP, which showed the economy grew. The figure was higher than the expectation of economists who had been polled. It comes as the U.S. economy grew at a rate of roughly 2.1% in 2025. The second half of last year saw 4.4% growth. So that's good. Not where everybody wants it to be necessarily yet, but getting better. Brandon Gill, one of our favorites in the House of Representatives. Let's go to him for a minute. Clip number 54. This is pretty good. Talking about SNAP benefits, you know, all this social welfare that your tax money goes to pay for and buy groceries, supposedly for those in need. Noble, worthwhile. There are seldom any Americans that I talk to that don't support the idea of helping those in need. But when it comes right down to what you're able to buy with those SNAP benefits, number 54 here, Aaron, if you would please, Representative Brandon Gill talking about the idea you can still buy with your SNAP benefits soda, like Coca-Cola. And he asks those in open testimony if Coca-Cola has any nutritional value. Should taxpayers be fronting the bill for things like that? Pretty good exchange.
Don't have the resources.
Do you satiate hunger with Coca-Cola?
I did not say that.
But you said that the worst health outcome is hunger, and I'm asking you about sugary sodas.
And I'm focusing on the nutrition needs and making sure that children have the resources.
Is your organization funded by soft drink makers?
I am not in charge of development, but no.
It's not. Okay. Is your organization funded by organizations that make money from food stamps? Do organizations who profit off of food stamps fund your organization or businesses?
I mean, I can't comment to that. Happy to talk about the research that needed.
Does General Mills fund your organization?
I don't have access to that information.
I do. It's right here. They do fund your organization. Do they profit off of food stamps?
Retailers are the major beneficiaries.
Do you think that that's a conflict of interest?
That's where EBT dollars are utilized.
Yes, and they're profiting off of your advocacy. Do you think that that's a conflict of interest? I think most people think that's a conflict of interest. I know you don't want to answer. My time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Oh, he's good. He's a surgeon. He continued just a little more of this. It's such a palate cleanser for a Friday. Take a listen. Number 55, a little more Gill, if you please.
Taxpayers' money should be utilized to ensure that individuals have access to the food that they need to survive or may be accessible to them.
Do they need sugary sodas to survive?
Some of them do, who do have low blood issues, who may
Is that
have
right?
COVID, or who have kidney issues.
You think
Yes,
they
there's-
need Coca-Cola to survive? Do you think that's the most appropriate use of our tax dollars?
I am not a physician, but medical records and expertise.
You were
do
just
show that in
citing
some
the
circumstances
health
they do.
needs, apparently, of the American people. So do the American people need Coca-Cola to survive?
I did not say that. I said then.
I'm asking you. I'm giving you the opportunity to say yes or no.
I will not answer for individuals and their choices.
You think that there are some Americans who need Coca-Cola to survive? Is that your testimony?
I am happy to talk about the food and nutrition
You just don't
needs that
know.
individuals have.
You just don't know. I think most people can rationally say that you don't need Coca-Cola to survive. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree that we have a hunger crisis and that we need to address it, but ensuring that individuals have the food resource that they need.
Got it. And one of those is sugary Coca-Cola. What does SNAP stand for?
That's fun, isn't it? And it just cuts right through the crap. It cuts through the garbage. That kind of representation from Brandon Gill is what every American taxpayer should want. Straightforward lines of questioning, absolutely exposing the waste, the fraud, the abuse of your tax dollars. That's what an elected representative should do. Good on Brandon Gill. Here's another one from the Washington Times talking about protecting your tax dollars. Do you know this? This will stun you. You ready? Federal buildings in Washington. Have you been to Washington, D.C.? Have you ever walked the streets of Washington, D.C.? I have a few times. And I'll tell you, one of the things that amazes me, having lived in Philadelphia for a little bit, I walk around Independence Hall in Philadelphia, for instance. The entirety of the federal government, once upon a time, fit into like a city block. The entirety of the whole federal government that our founders created. Supreme Court, 2 chambers of Congress, the presidency, it all fit in a city block. Think of that. In less than 250 years, if you go to Washington, D.C. today, it's blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks of these huge concrete edifices built to house and worship the ever-growing bureaucratic state. It's enormous. The buildings are enormous. Never mind just members of Congress and their staffs. I'm talking about every single cabinet and department and their staffs. Blocks and blocks, acres and acres, thousands of acres of federal bureaucrats paid by your tax dollars. And here's a new report in the Washington Times. No federal building in the nation, so never mind just Washington, D.C., but every federal building across the country. Are you ready for this? Get ready. This will blow your mind. No federal building in the nation has met 60% occupancy minimums required by law to stay open. This is a report, brand new, just released yesterday. The bipartisan Public Buildings Reform Board's analysis of General Services Administration data noted that just 275,336 of roughly 2 million federal employees nationwide worked in their offices after the law took effect. What does it cost you? $1.34 billion a year. That includes all federal agencies except for those, the judicial branch and the Department of Defense, which didn't report their numbers. Dan Matthews, Biden appointee to the board. There is just far more space than the government needs. The Use It Act, which took effect July 25th, directs federal agencies to restaff their underused office space within 12 months or else get rid of it. The GSA, General Services Administration, manages a federal real estate portfolio of more than 350 million square feet nationwide. Did you hear that stat? Let me read it to you again. The federal government manages a federal real estate portfolio of more than 350 million square feet. That is roughly 40% of federal buildings are in Washington, D.C., where extended telework during the pandemic emptied them. The former GSA Public Buildings Commissioner called for aggressive consolidation and urged agencies to lease unused space while the Trump administration decides which buildings to shed. Nevertheless, he said exceptions would have to be made for properties such as the FBI's holding cells and field offices where agents are often away. The Reform Board estimates that the GSA has received repair allocations equaling just, these are numbers, boring. Joni Ernst, who co-sponsored the Use It Act to target buildings that became ghost towns during the pandemic and telework, said occupancy numbers reported Thursday demand immediate action. With Americans struggling to pay the high cost of their own housing, we shouldn't be forced to continue subsidizing millions of dollars of empty building maintenance, said Miss Ernst. No more excuses. Put the least used on the auction block tomorrow and let the bidding begin. Of course, that's the right thing to do. It's just common sense, and everybody knows it. Here's what's not common sense. From the Daily Wire, members of a historic female-only society are being warned they could violate human rights if they exclude men. Can't make it up. Again, from the Democrats Tell Us Who They Are file, members of the Daughters of the American Revolution are voting on a resolution that would amend the group's bylaws to clarify only natural-born women can join the female-only society at its national meeting this week in Washington, D.C. Can't make it up. The Daughters of the American Revolution. Human rights law. The proposed resolution would blatantly violate the D.C. human rights law. Refusing admission to transgender women facially discriminates against them based on gender identity. The Daughters of the American Revolution allows men who believe they are women to join the female-only society, which prompted local chapters to put forward the resolution clarifying that only natural-born women could join the society. The term women shall be understood to clearly mean a woman who was born female. The Daily Wire obtained an internal memo and legal analysis of the resolution distributed by the executive committee. The executive committee wrote it felt an obligation to provide educational information on the proposed resolution, warning it would prohibit transgender women from joining the Daughters of the American Revolution. So there's an actual war within the Daughters of the American Revolution as to what is a daughter. Some of them want to include men. This is how churches split. Why shouldn't the Daughters of the American Revolution split over it too? Amazing. In a somewhat related story, Caitlin Clark. Do you follow the WNBA? I don't. Maybe you do. From PJ Media and David Manny, I don't care much about pro basketball, he writes, NBA or WNBA, but I know what a league looks like when it's found the player who can change its future, and that's Caitlin Clark for the WNBA. And they keep letting her take punishment most stars would never be expected to absorb. Have you seen any of this? Aaron, do you follow basketball much? I don't follow it at all, certainly not the WNBA, but I have been seeing clips on social media of Caitlin Clark that keeps surfacing, and she's getting the hell beaten out of her during these games. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I've seen it. I'm a little aware of it. You don't care. Even with Caitlin, I don't think they make any money. They're subsidized by the NBA, all that. So
yeah, this guy says in the NBA,
noise.
stars usually get the whistle, sometimes too often. Clark is getting the upside down version. She brings the crowd, the TV attention, the money, and the noise. What does she receive in return? She gets hammered while officials miss the obvious. The league later fixes the call on paper after the bruises have already been delivered. The WNBA wanted the Caitlin Clark boom, they write. Now it has to deserve it. Calling obvious fouls in real time isn't special treatment. Punishing reckless contact hard enough to stop it isn't favoritism. Telling teams to stop attacking and acting like injury jokes are clever isn't coddling. Clark isn't fragile. She carried Iowa, celebrity, resentment, and impossible expectations into a league still unsure whether to embrace her or resent her. But no player can carry a league while the league shrugs at her getting pummeled. The WNBA has a generational player on its hands. If it lets Clark get ground down because too many people enjoy watching her pay a physical price for being great, the league won't look tough. It'll look small. Caitlin Clark brought millions of new eyes to the WNBA, and the league still looks confused about whether to protect her or punish her for being popular. It's amazing. Daughters of the American Revolution letting men in to their daughters organization. Caitlin Clark, literally the reason anyone would even watch that garbage product called the WNBA, and they're letting her have the hell beaten out of her. Where are the women's groups exactly? I'd throw in Islamism for that matter as well. Women, where are you? Men pretending to be women. Islamism covering you head to toe, slits for eyes. Caitlin Clark having the hell beaten out of her. Where are the women? Where's the sisterhood? I am woman, hear me roar, right? Where's Jane Fonda? Where are the bra burners? I don't know. One more before we get out of here today. President Trump has announced he's just signed an executive order to help America's farmers. This is good news, Aaron. If you could, please, number 59 here, please.
Earlier today in the Oval Office, it was my honor to sign an executive order directing federal agencies to accelerate agricultural innovations that give farmers and ranchers the necessary resources to ensure American crops are the healthiest and the most abundant and the most affordable. And we're always working for the farmer. We want to make it better and easier for you, a lot easier for you. We're pleased to be joined tonight by Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins. And earlier today in the Oval Office, it was my honor to sign an
Yeah, so the details on this thing. President Trump had a surprise for the farmers. He invited to dinner Thursday night a request to Congress for $11.1 billion in assistance that would amount to the second bit of help this year for the beleaguered agriculture sector. The appeal to Congress is part of a supplemental funding package that includes defense spending. It seeks $10 billion in assistance. The aid request, one of several items rolled out by the administration. It's a big deal. America's farmers need help. They need some certainty. Their input costs are through the roof. Fertilizer, chief among them, being one of the highest. Gas prices starting to come down. Fertilizer costs hopefully will begin to retreat as the Strait of Hormuz opens. Got to produce more of it here, of course. Ethanol is a big issue, too. You know, people that are growing corn and soybeans, biofuels, alternatives to oil. There's a really, and we don't talk a lot about this, but you should know that oil companies not exactly enthused about the idea of biofuels and ethanol mandates. There's a healthy debate inside the Republican Party about that too. America's farmers would like to see a higher ethanol standard, an E15 standard. They say that that would at least create a new source of demand. Now, some conservatives say that's artificial. I'd hear that, but we've got to decide as a country whether America's farmers and our farmland is worth protecting. I see America's farmland like I see America's roads. There's only so much land, there's only so much road, there's only so much food and agriculture domestically. And if we don't support it, then we export it, we outsource it. I don't know about you, I don't want to see America's farming outsourced. And I think we all probably want to see our food supply in our own hands to the best of our ability when we can. So I don't know. In my opinion, it makes good sense to try to shore up America's farmers. But as I say, I know there's a healthy debate amongst conservatives about it. We'll continue to watch it here. I hope you have a good weekend. That's going to do it for us today here from America's Heartland. Be sure to keep up to date on all the latest news throughout the week. For an honest, straightforward approach in real journalism, heartlandernews.com is the website. Every day, all week long, heartlandernews.com. And be sure to subscribe to Heartlander News right here on YouTube. Give us a like and comment, too, if you're so inclined. We're glad to have you along. Hope to see you next time right here on Heartlander News.